1079 CDY. This is Cadillac Unscripted, and it's sponsored by Independent Bank. It's another half hour of local chat. Katy Huckle is alongside, and Katy, of another very important show today, wouldn't you say?
It sure is, and an important person who knows a lot about what's top of mind for all of us right now, and that is COVID-19 and vaccinations and building community health and moving forward and looking at a bright future. So welcome, Dr. Morse, who is the District 10 Director of the Health Department.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. We're just so glad you could carve out a little bit of time. I'm sure your world has been extremely busy, so thank you for your time today. I just wanted to kind of start with how is the vaccine launch going, and about what percentage of the population that you cover has been vaccinated?
It's going well. Of all the different age groups, about 40 to 50% of our population has gotten at least one shot so far, depending on whichever vaccine they've chosen to get vaccinated with.
Mm-hmm. And did you set a goal for that, and do you feel like you're on track?
We would like to see more uptake. We, of course, at the beginning, like most of the state, were just overloaded with people who are interested in getting vaccinated, which was fantastic. And I think most of those people that were really excited to get vaccinated have been vaccinated. Now we need to get a bit more creative. Some newer surveys and studies are finding there's still a good percentage of people out there that want to get vaccinated. They just haven't had the chance to. And so, having large mass clinics in the middle of the day is not the best thing to do for a lot of people because they're working, they're busy. So we are thinking of different ways. We've been to the Mushroom Festival. We've been to the Trout Festival. We're trying to do some different things like that and just go randomly out into the community to vaccinate, and getting more and more providers registered to vaccinate in their offices. So we hit that huge surge in the beginning, and now it is slowing down as we're getting those individuals that are just having a harder time getting vaccinated or are not sure if they want to be vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. That's the other thing another thing I wanted to talk to you about is vaccine hesitancy. What are you hearing out there, and how do you combat that?
Well, unfortunately, with vaccines in general, there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation, and we are seeing that really full force with the COVID vaccine. Misinformation is when people, unfortunately, just kind of misunderstand things. They might think that there might be a natural medicine that might work for them better than the vaccine, and they might share that amongst their friends or on social media, and inadvertently spread wrong information. Mm-hmm. Disinformation is when someone really intentionally, for their own agenda or someone else's agenda, make up something or doctor videos and spread information that just goes against the betterment of society. So one example is a video that was doctored to make it sound like there was a microchip in the vaccine, and people would be microchipped when they were injected, which is completely untrue. But again, mm-hmm. someone intentionally made this information, and there is a lot of that going on. And, people see that on social media, they share it with someone else, then they share it with 5 other people, and they share it with 5 other people. And so we unfortunately are battling something that has been labeled an infodemic. So just basically an epidemic of information, of misinformation and disinformation. And it's really difficult because people don't know who to trust. We have a lot of people that just worry that the government might be putting out misinformation and don't know who to trust. And so that has been really, really challenging and really makes me sad. I don't know what else to say. It just breaks my heart that, there are just people that are harming others with information. So, and, they may not see it as that way, but unfortunately that's what's happening, is that people are getting wrong information and choosing not to protect themselves and their family. And people can die. People can have long-term medical complications from COVID infection and things like that. So it's a very difficult struggle that we're fighting against right now.
Well, and Dr. Morse, you're trying to roll the vaccine out. You don't want to have to hire a PR firm to educate people on top of that. That's got to be, you use the word disheartening, and I just sat here just upset that folks would try to hijack the rollout so that we can get people healthy again. And with that comes mental health, as you know. Folks are worried about family reunions, and I know more than one bride who's just in a very high anxiety state of mind, wondering if the whole thing's going to get canceled, and cutting back guest lists. And so the list goes on and on and on. But for what your focus is on keeping people healthy and educating people, I want you to know that the word on the street in Rich in My World is you're doing an incredible job of updating your website, that your team has been committed to this and sort of put their lives on hold to get the community healthy. And for that, we are very grateful.
Well, I appreciate that. It's good to hear that. We tend to hear, and I think as a society, we tend to say when we're unhappy, or we tend to hear when people are unhappy. And so it's always good to hear that there are good comments too. So I really appreciate that.
Yep, that you guys are doing good and important work.
Yeah. It's been a difficult year. And I think, and this may be off topic, but I think in general we've all had a very negative, stressful year and a half, and we're all just grumpy. And so I think we need to. I think we need to start practicing more gratitude and really focusing on what we do have and what good has happened to each of us each day, and try to focus on the positives rather than lashing out at each other, rather than focusing on what's been taken away from us. I'm afraid we've gotten into this pit of negativity that we're never going to crawl out of, and it really, really worries me.
Wow, that's a mouthful coming from someone at your level who's been around this. I think she nailed it, don't you, Ross?
Well, yeah, and I think people who are in a negative frame of mind often want, like Doctor said, they want to lash out, but I think they all want to they don't know that they're doing this, but they're transferring their misery to others.
Yeah,
and they don't really know they're doing it, but they're doing it, and it needs to end for sure.
Well, and I kind of smile. It is about. I really like the idea of gratitude. You're spot on. I mean, today is, a beautiful day, and we should be grateful for that. And so many other positive things that happen, and trying to find the positives too. Taking an active interest in the positives instead of just waiting for some unicorns and butterflies to say, why should I be grateful today? And maybe I should write down a few things that I'm grateful for. It's a good best practice. I chuckle because I have a dear friend that's usually very calm in temperament that said to me, the next time I see someone leave a shopping cart unattended out in the grocery store parking lot, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to get that hand. I said, are you going to do, like a citizen's arrest? I mean, it was just so outrageous. It's true. It's not nice to leave your shopping carts out so that it can door ding somebody or whatever. But I thought, this is someone that doesn't normally get whipped up about much. And when we had Dr. Whalen on, he explained mental health and COVID to us in this way. He said, we're anxious about the unknown. We're anxious about the sickness, and that manifests itself in anger and in lashing out and acting out. And that really made sense.
One of the things that we talked with Dr. Whalen about, and I will tee this question up for you. So the battle against COVID-19, let's compare it to a baseball game, a 9-inning baseball game. Where are we at right now in that 9-inning baseball game against the battle of COVID-19?
That is a really tricky question, and I've been loath to make predictions because we just don't know if we're going to go into overtime, if it's going to end up being a double header. This is the World Series. This is 7 games, best out of 7. So it is really, really difficult to say. I would like to think that we're in about inning 6. Okay. But we don't know if they're going to change the rules and add like a 5th base, or the bats are going to get half as big, or they're going to throw 3 balls at you at once when you're up to bat, things like that. And with that, I mean things like, are we going to get worse variants? Are they going to be able to evade the vaccine? Are different things like that. Or on the opposite, are we going to find better treatments? That kind of thing. So that is one of the biggest issues, I think, is that we as a society are used to having perfect health. I shouldn't say perfect health care, but really good health care that knows how to diagnose something. You go in, you have tests done, they figure it out, and they give you medicine. Even if you don't necessarily get better, there's stuff you can do about it, whereas this has all been brand new.
Right.
And people can't handle the fact when we stand up in front of them and say, we don't know. This is new, we don't know. And yes, we told you last week you didn't have to wear a mask, but now we're telling you you do have to wear a mask. It's not because we don't know what we're doing, it's because we don't know how this virus works, and we're learning it as we go.
Yes,
So,
it's a moving target,
yeah.
Dr. Morse, yes.
Yep.
And
The virus keeps changing. So once we figure it out, the stinking thing changes
Right.
the rules on us. And, now we have these variants that spread so much faster, and the Indian variant is starting to creep into the picture in the U.S., and will that have an impact on us? And so, again, I really don't like to make predictions, but if we can all stick together and get vaccinated and, keep doing the preventative things we need to do, hopefully we just have a few more innings to go.
So you're pretty comfortable in saying that we're on the downside, where that the light is at the end of the tunnel.
Well, we have very useful prevention now, whereas before it was more just avoiding getting sick and some kind of basic treatments for people that were really sick. Now we have effective preventative methods. The issue is getting everybody to use them. So getting people to get vaccinated as quickly as possible. And again, we revved off really fast, and now we're just kind of stuck. And we need to get that last 50% of people to get vaccinated. Now, some of those people are too young, and we should see the vaccine get approved for younger and younger ages with time. But those that are eligible, we really need them to get vaccinated.
So this is a perfect time to go to break, Dr. Morris. I told you the time was going to fly by, and it certainly has. So we're going to be back with more of the director of the District 10 Health Department and her thoughts on COVID-19. We'll be right back.
And Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank. Cadillac Unscripted, back with Dr. Morse from District Health Department number 10. And Katy, we're talking COVID today. We've been doing this show now for almost a year and a half, and we could have dedicated every show since last March to this, although it would have been exhausting. There's still so much information to get out there, so we appreciate Doctor's time today.
We sure do. She's a very busy lady. And so I think this is on everyone's mind, Dr. Morse. Are cases declining locally?
Yes, they have been going down since about mid-April. However, they're about 3 times as high still as they were at our lowest point in February. And same with our percent positivity. It's been going down, but it's still 2 to 3 times higher than it was at our lowest point in February. So we still have a ways to go. So my fear is, we get that feeling, things are getting better. Let's start taking our masks off, having parties, things like that. There's still a lot of COVID in the area, and so we need to be vigilant. We also have a lot of variant in the activity or in the area. In Michigan, it's estimated about 70% of the viral strains at this point now are the B117 variant. So the older variant that didn't spread as easily is now the minority. The majority of the viral strains that are circulating are the more contagious variants. So definitely not time to let down our guard, but things are going in the right direction.
Oh, that's wonderful news.
Is there a fear at this point, Dr. Morse, about folks who have already had both shots getting sick? How do you assess that?
Yeah, so no vaccine is 100% effective.
Right.
That would be great if they were, but they're just not. So there is active monitoring for anyone who has become sick, who is fully vaccinated. That information is collected and sent to the CDC, so they are monitoring that very closely, and so are we in Michigan. And it's been, of the cases that have been reported, you can only report what gets reported to us, but it's been an extremely tiny number compared to the millions of vaccines that have been given. But, on average, about 5% of people who are fully vaccinated could get infected still. Of the cases that are reported, the majority of them are very mild. In fact, about 30% of them that have been reported to the CDC had no symptoms at all. They were tested, like on their admission to the hospital or before a surgery or something like that, and found to be positive. And, very, very small number had to be in the hospital, and a tiny number had to be, a very tiny number passed away. And again, a certain percentage of both of those groups had no symptoms of COVID. They were in the hospital for another reason or died from another reason and just tested positive as part of that screening process for that hospital. So that is one reason that people that don't get vaccinated use as the reason for not getting vaccinated. Well, if I could get sick anyways, why would I bother getting vaccinated? And that's similar to what people who don't get the flu shot will say. But again, your risks are tremendously reduced, and it appears that if you do get COVID, your chances of having more severe illness of COVID is reduced. So it's not a real good reason to not get vaccinated.
I am not a statistician, but 5% of those who have had, if I'm hearing you correctly, 5% of those who've had both shots, and then 30% of those 5% aren't reporting any symptoms at all. That is a significant number of people who have been helped and kept out of the hospital and kept from getting sick by the vaccination.
Yes, and once we get 70 to 90% of the population immune, it'll be even more, because you have to have people that are susceptible to infection enough so, around people that are maybe going to experience that vaccine failure to cause it to spread to them in the first place. If there's enough immune people around, the odds of it spreading to someone who might have a vaccine failure is practically zero. So, once we get those bubbles of immunity to protect everybody, it gets lower and lower.
I see. So folks that are concerned about the long-term side effects of the virus, what do you tell those people, Dr. Morse?
Well, that is another good reason to get vaccinated. And I think that is really that is really underappreciated. I just was reading a study today where they followed up just over 300 people in Italy from the time they were infected to a year later. And they all had mild to moderate COVID, so they did not have to be in the hospital. They recovered at home. And over 25% of them still had symptoms at a year after their illness.
Oh, my goodness.
The most common was, So the most common was fatigue, then shortness of breath, and muscle aches, and so on down the list. About 15% of them were struggling with depression, and 5% of them ranked their quality of life as being very poor a year later.
Oh, my goodness.
And I think that within the first 3 months, the rates of having symptoms still is much higher. But just to say, okay, a year later even, you may still feel crummy. Mm-hmm. And to worry about your vaccine, which, might make your arm hurt, might make you feel a bit cruddy for a day or two after your first and then after your second shot, compared to feeling awful to the point of being on disability for some of these individuals. You have to look at, you yourself have to look at what risk you're willing to take. For me personally, it's a no-brainer. I know vaccines very well. I'm very comfortable with them. My whole family's vaccinated now. I would not ever want to take the risk of having chronic illness because I can't be disabled. It just wouldn't work out for me. So, and plus, again, the risk of death is low, but it's there for every single person, regardless of your age or risk factors.
For parents that are wondering how to explain this to their children when the vaccine rolls out for younger folks, do you have any dialogue or talking points that you would share with parents?
Sure. My hope is that when we do know that the majority of parents give their kids other vaccines. And so to me, it would be a very similar discussion, but just that it's really important to prevent you from getting COVID. If they were to get, if you as a child were to get COVID, it might not be that bad, but we never know what kiddo is going to have really bad sickness. But we need to keep you from getting infected because that helps to keep other people from getting infected too. So it's to help you keep safe and to help you keep others safe. So it's very safe, it's very effective, and we're going to do this. It's not going to be, do you want it? We're going to do this. And if you need to motivate them a little bit, you can say, remember those times in school when you had to be quarantined? Well, now you don't have to be quarantined once you're fully vaccinated. Remember how you had to get tested every week in sports? Well, once you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to do that anymore. Remember how we were always so nervous when we went on trips? Well, now we don't have to be quite as nervous. Just
excellent.
Other things. If you need to have other motivators, but, I'm one of those parents where it's just, we're going to get our flu shots today. Let's go.
Get in the car,
time
right?
For your vaccines. Let's go. So I'm not one for asking my kids if they want to get their shots. It's just let's go. We're doing it. So
you got to lead by example. And I wanted to ask you personally a question. How does someone in your role professionally prepare for something like this?
Well, people may not realize it, but at the health department and through the state, we regularly prepare for pandemics and for emergencies. We do tabletop exercises where different groups will sit around a table and kind of talk through, what if we had to set up an emergency vaccine clinic for pandemic flu? What if there was an anthrax release and we had to set up a mass antibiotic clinic? We do real events where we will kind of mock a mass dispensing clinic for either a vaccine or a medication or an emergency. So we do that several times a year. We are all trained in the incident command structure and the emergency preparedness structure, the federal systems. So public health prepares for this.
I see.
Yeah, so it's nice if we had more infrastructure and more preparedness behind it, but it's hard to justify, and funding's been cut for quite some time just because there hasn't been a major emergency, and so that kind of gets cut. But right after 9/11, there was a lot of investment into that kind of preparing, and after the anthrax event, there was a lot of investment into that preparation. But that is, we all have pandemic flu plans, so that's why when it comes to doing mass vaccination clinics, the health departments have been the go-to for that.
Oh, you're the go-to for a lot, absolutely. And to that point, when someone wants specific information, where should we route those people?
Well, certainly they can go to our website, which is dhd10.org. There are numerous other websites, and I can send them to you if you'd like to have them to link. But there are many, many different websites that are both government linked and then non-government linked because, I have no problem admitting that some people just don't want to hear what the government has to say. And so there's some that actually parents have started to provide information. There's also quite a few fact-checking sites that are available that are nonpartisan, some that are specifically for COVID, and then there's some that really help fact-check any news, but also has COVID integrated into it. And those are really, really helpful. So
yes, it would be great if we could get those links, just because when this first hit, again, Rich he said, we need to get information to people, and the correct information pushed out. And so you've just been a wonderful partner for us in terms of routing people to, your site to get specific answers, and then to feel confident about that information and passing it along. So yeah, we'd love to have the links. I do think that there's a heightened respect for the public health department. Would you agree, Dr. Morse, because of this?
Well, I would hope so. There's kind of a joke with public health that nobody knows you exist until something goes wrong. So,
So you're kind of like the referees and umpires of the health world.
Yes.
When you think about it.
And crisis control.
Right, except we don't have white and black striped shirts and stand in front of everybody. So maybe we're like the secret judge up in the booth that nobody sees is watching tape. But yeah, I started this job just almost 6 years ago, and coming from private practice, and really had no clue how much the health department did until I was doing it. Mm-hmm. Immense respect and pride in what local public health departments do, how much they help people. But again, there's so much that people don't even know that we do. It's amazing. And our staff, our nurses, they're not ones to toot their own horns. Mm-hmm. But then when there's an emergency and we're needed, we step up and get to work. Unfortunately, with this crisis, there's been a lot of controversy with it. There's been a lot of, again, like we talked earlier, a lot of stress, mm-hmm. A lot of anger, a lot of controversy. And our nurses especially, but all of our staff have been kind of the sounding board for a lot of that anger and, lack of cooperation from some. However, we've also gotten a lot of thank yous, especially when vaccine clinics started. The amount of, outpouring of thank you from the community has really been appreciated. But it has definitely been a tough year and a half for the staff. But just to know that that's how hard they always work and how much they work for the community all the time. And so I am so proud and honored to be part of that team. I'm just there to watch how great they are. They're the nurses and everyone else. They're just superstars.
Wow, that is a perfect way to wrap up the show, Dr. Morse. Hats off and a salute and a big thank you from the Cadillac community in the surrounding area for your hard work and your leadership as medical director of the District 10 Health Department. Thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and all of the information that you shared with us today. And please go back and tell your staff that the community is eternally grateful.
I will do that. They will love to hear it. Thank you.
Cadillac Unscripted, sponsored by Independent Bank. Join us next week, same time, same station, also on our YouTube channel. And you can find a link from Cadillac Unscripted's Facebook page as well as 1079 CDY's Facebook page if you missed any or all of this program. We'll see you next week on Cadillac Unscripted on 1079 CDY.